Tom, welcome to Spotlight Fridays. I'm delighted to have you here. It's been a long time coming, especially because you're based in the UK and I'm based in Australia. So it's 6 p.m. my time, and for the first time, we are not recording it live. But I absolutely promise you, we will be streamlining to my audience in Australia after this call as well. So, welcome to Spotlight Fridays.
And so thanks so much for the invite, Alan. It's great to be on, and we've been connected for quite a long time, so it's good to spend some time together on this.
Yes, absolutely. And I found you on LinkedIn, and I'm a massive fan of the information that you're posting. I'm a proud subscriber to your newsletter as well, that I read all the time. But I also found that not many people actually talk about this subject. So I want to really dive into it. So please tell us what you do and who you are.
Sure, yeah. My name's Tom Burrell. I'm a retention consultant. I have a business called Retention Coach. It's an independent, single-person retention strategy consultancy. I work with primarily mid-market enterprise brands and their exco teams to improve customer retention.
Brilliant. And I believe you've started that relatively recently. So you posted on LinkedIn something like 300 something days.
I started the business in January 24. So it's like 2 years old, my business. Yeah. Very, very new, but it's like my experience is not new. I spent 26 years in retention, working client side for brands like DAZN, where I was senior vice president of retention, for Manchester United, where I was head of marketing and head of CRM. Prior to that, I spent 11 years in agencies, 7 of which I was global CRM director at a Digitas, a publicist agency, and executive strategy director as well for the Middle East and North Africa when I was based out there. So prior to that, I was in telcos, and actually 3 years in Sydney. My first role actually was as a retention analyst, CRM analyst at Orange in Sydney. So couple of 2.5 decades of experience in retention.
Yes,
But
just
years,
a few. Remarkable that you actually lived in Sydney as well.
yeah, I lived in Sydney. I loved it. It was a good time. It was a good time.
And did you manage to travel around Australia?
Yes, went plenty of places around Australia. Went to the middle, went to the north, went to Queensland, lots of Ocean Road, quite a bit of time in Melbourne.
Well done. Great Ocean Road. Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, you're definitely completely overqualified for what you do, but we'll go over that. So tell me what was happening in your work that made retention the problem that was worth focusing for you on?
So yeah, no, like I spent my whole career in retention, as I said, but like I really love the discipline. I find it like fascinating, and I kind of, as I've worked in it and worked with multiple different clients, and then being client side myself, I just found myself going kind of deeper and deeper and repeatedly, and trying to understand the why behind the customer behavior, right? So, and what I saw is when you kind of keep asking those questions and you keep optimizing based on actual customer behavior rather than kind of business dynamics, then you can make a massive impact. So Harvard Business Review, and this is a couple of, it's quite old, this data, but I kind of broke down the maths in one of my newsletters, you might have seen. But what Harvard Business Review and Bain have shown is that 5 to 10% improvement in retention can drive between a 25 and 100% improvement in profits, because you keep the revenue you would have lost, you maximize customer lifetime value. Acquisition is more efficient, and that can be a kind of a difficult one to get your head around, but acquisition is more efficient if you've got the same target, and retention improves. You don't need the same customer base target, and retention improves. You don't need to spend as much on acquisition to hit the same number. And then you don't need to spend as much on acquisition. When you don't spend as much on acquisition, it becomes more efficient because you reach more low hanging fruit. Also, when retention improves, customers are happier. So customer advocacy improves, and therefore referral rates improve. When retention improves, you have customers that are more tenured within your customer base. They require less support, so customer service cost reduces, and then also more tenured customers are more likely to be upsold. So all of those dynamics together add up to massive increases in profit if you can get it right. And obviously it varies by sector, and obviously this can be more profound in subscription and recurring revenue businesses where there's an ongoing financial relationship, but it works across all sectors. And I believe that, through my experience of what I've seen is that often the person accountable for retention is on Exco would be chief commercial officer or sometimes the CMO, but they don't control all the levers that drive it. And so what I do is I work with those leaders to ensure that they prioritize the right roadmap items in order to deliver the transformation or the change that they need in order to drive the retention upside. Because many brands just focus overtly on growth through acquisition, and there's only so big a TAM, right? No matter what industry you're in, and if you burn through that TAM, it just makes the success of the business more and more difficult. If you keep your existing customers retained, then you can achieve all of the kind of the growth numbers that I mentioned, because of all of the variables I mentioned. And what I see in many organizations is, because of this kind of lack of understanding of what actually drives retention, is that it's quite often undervalued, and the teams that work in retention are quite underappreciated, like brand or acquisitions hero. And quite often, many CMOs, and you talk to Forrester about this, many CMOs actually come from acquisition or brand backgrounds, and they take responsibility for retention KPI, but they don't really understand what drives it. Chief commercial officers usually come from revenue backgrounds, and they don't really necessarily understand what drives it. And so my why really underlying everything that I do is to elevate the role and the profile of those retention teams within those organizations, because of the impact that they can make when it's done well.
There are so many things you mentioned in just answering that question. The ownership part, which I find quite challenging. The spend part as well, because it seems like bigger is better. So let's just throw all the money on acquisition and let's just hope that it sticks and those people will stay in. And then we'll just forget to measure how many people actually stayed on after that, or they just join and purchase something from you or subscribe just to get that initial discount, and then in the first 90 days, and you'll never see them again. But we'll unpack that. But I think this is so important, everything what you touched on. And, it's quite unusual to have retention as part of their KPIs. I don't know if it is on the UK market, but it's certainly in Australia.
Yeah, I think it depends on the sector. I think quite often in subscription recurring revenue businesses, so you're thinking like telcos, subscription boxes, B2B SaaS, gyms, streaming businesses, gambling, etc. Everywhere there's a kind of recurring revenue relationship. Obviously, retention is a very important KPI. In like brands like e-commerce and so on, it's a bit looser, but it's still important, right? It's important to get it right.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, you've been in this game for obviously over 20 years. We're not going to mention your age. You look very young. And you probably started when you were 6. But you've been in it now for a couple of years as a coach, and I'm glad that you decided to go on your own, because it means that you can support more organization as a consultant. It's exactly what motivates me. So what you learned from rebuilding and repositioning your offering in that first year? Because it takes a few reiterations, right? It's not like you just work.
Tons. So the first year particularly, I think I rewrote my website 7 times. I'm still like iterating in terms of my profiles, to kind of better match my ICP, continuously. But I think you just got to keep refining and optimizing and learning, and you just keep doing it until you feel comfortable, and then you'll feel comfortable for a bit, and then you won't, and then you'll refine again, right? So and it just comes from kind of market feedback and understanding what's resonating and landing, really. I love being an independent, because it allows me to go kind of deep into the problem of an organization and work with multiple different sectors who are facing different challenges. But commonly I see that it all comes back to the fact that every business is ultimately dealing with humans, no matter what business you are, and humans have common behaviors, and it's about picking what those behaviors are and applying them into the organization in a way that drives the commercial output.
Brilliantly said. So, speaking of humans, what leaders usually think their retention problem is when they first come to you? And do they articulate it as a retention problem?
Yes, sometimes. So quite often, I think it massively varies. So I worked with a gym group client. It's quite a big business, like that 300 million ARR in the UK. 250 gyms. I worked with them last year, and a member of their exco got in touch with me to help build their 2025 retention roadmap. They're successful in their own right? But they get very cyclical churn. So like they're a low price, cancel at any time, sort of monthly flex gym proposition. And they're targeting Gen Z, who are, their motivation may wane, depending on, what Instagram video they've seen on that particular day. Also, their finances are under pressure because they're not, at that stage of life where they've got that stability in their lives. So churn is very, very cyclical there, but the business is usually successful. So they came to me because they really wanted to step change the KPI to support the board's objectives. So that was very much about like diagnostic, what's driving the issues within the organizations leading to this behavior. And some of it is intrinsic because it's based on the core audience motivation. And then what are the initiatives that we put in place in order to address it and improve that KPI. So that was like a diagnostic and roadmap piece of work. And then other clients, like I worked with quite extensively this year, a big gambling brand, which is also in my space, like recurring revenue business. And they had a huge revenue target against this big, what they call customer lifecycle marketing transformation or customer lifecycle management transformation. And that's sat across CRM, product, service, etc., operations. Big revenue target against this transformation, AI powered, already invested in tech, etc. But they didn't know how to deliver it, right? So what I did is I facilitated workshops with the commercial teams, with the product teams, with the CRM marketing folk, with the service teams, and we built a roadmap. And then I supported them in the execution of that roadmap for about 3 or 4 months, and they're up and running with it now, and it's going pretty well by all accounts. And then I worked with the CCO directly, and him and I regularly met with the CEO, informed him of progress of the program and so on. So it depends. Like the kind of my offer really sits around like diagnostic, executional plan. I don't like roadmap because roadmap sounds like a Gantt chart, but it is kind of like an executional plan, like the level of detail. So what we're going to do in onboarding, these are the key principles. These are the things that we need to do at these stages across these moments within the relationship. And then, so that level 1 is diagnostic, level 2 is that executional plan, and level 3 is actually supporting clients in delivering that executional plan for a period of time, like particularly in complex enterprise organizations. You'll know, you've worked with many, is that kind of politics and organizational complexity that you need to help the senior leader navigate through in order to drive the goals that they seek. So those are the kind of 3 levels of fidelity that I work with clients. But obviously every single project is like completely bespoke because but it's just a way of thinking about how I work, basically.
Yes, and you bring all those humans together. And to your earlier point, the CMOs are responsible for retention, but sometimes that they actually don't know who's doing what. So bringing the teams together and align them on the purpose, and then get it supported by the operation plan. That sometimes takes it's someone's full-time job.
Takes
Really.
a while. It does take a while, and it involves often kind of coaching people within the organization as well. But the key is obviously kind of driving alignment and buy-in across those functions. And so what often I see many organizations make, the mistake that many make is, you're a CCO, Chief Commercial Officer, or you're a CMO, and you're responsible for the retention KPI. Actually, the levers that drive retention are across product or across service, across operations, across marketing. And you might only control a couple of those levers. Like you might only control the acquisition quality lever or the CRM marketing lever, but not any of the others. And then in most organizations, if we're really real about it, product control the roadmap, right? The product team do control the roadmap. And if their KPI, the CPO's KPI is not retention, then they're going to prioritize what they need to deliver, right? And so it's about bringing all of those teams on board, right? And making sure that you're not in a situation where the person responsible for the number doesn't own the prioritization, right? There's not always trade-offs. There's always like political complexity, decisions that need to be made. And sometimes, as with this gambling client, those decisions need to be made by the CEO, right? In some contexts. But everybody needs to be clear on what those trade-offs are and what the context of those decisions are. But the danger with retention is there might be a mandate from the CEO. So we need to improve retention. We're going to implement this lifecycle management program, Product come up with a list of ideas. Service come up with a list of ideas. CRM marketing come up with a list of ideas. And they're told to prioritize their top 5 or 10. and then that becomes the roadmap. But that's not necessarily the right thing to do. It might be that actually out of the top 10 initiatives, 8 of them actually exist within service. And actually that's where the effort needs to be focused. And so that's what I help those senior leaders unpick and then navigate political complexity around.
So, do you normally workshop that scenario with all the teams
Yes, exactly.
involved?
Yeah. Yes, I've got, yeah. Comprehensive, usually sometimes over several days, definitely over several hours, usually over several sessions as well. Um, I think the first workshop we did with this gambling client lasted 3 days. We had people over from Israel and so on. I've facilitated the whole thing. It's got to be collaborative, right? Ideas come from everywhere. Everyone needs to feel like they've contributed and heard, so they feel ownership of the output. But there is such a thing as a bad idea as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's about managing that and ensuring and providing the stimulus to get people to think in the right way around retention, think about the drivers, think about the human behaviors, so that you can come up with ideas that actually kind of really fundamentally shift the needle.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, it's quite complex. It's not an easy job because you need to understand the current state. You need to understand who is who, the whole dynamics between the teams. You need to educate the executive team. You need to motivate those people who are actually going to be doing the doing. And this is not John Smith who just sits in a corner somewhere and no one ever hears from him or her. So it's a big job. It's complex and it does need time. So I'm glad that you're explaining in a way that you unpack it over a few sessions with a few people and you reiterate it. Because if people are not heard, if they're not included in this conversation, they're not going to own it. The only way to get them to own it when they actually have a voice and someone listens to them and take note of that and take their opinion and their point of view into consideration.
100%. They have to feel like they're contributed and it's their plan. They have to feel emotionally invested in it. And that's absolutely critical. So yeah, totally agree with you.
So tell me, when retention is under pressure, and we probably both see it very often, what the exec team typically do first?
There's two things that I see quite often. So one is crowdsource ideas. Rather than draw back to fundamentals. And actually, that's a big mistake. Crowdsourcing ideas and then rushing off to tactics is a bad idea. You need to really go back to what are the fundamentals around that kind of retention hierarchy needs that I mentioned. What are the human behavioral drivers that are leading to retention problems or challenges? And then the other kind of big problem that I see is it often is just treated as a messaging problem. A lot of people conflate CRM marketing and so lifecycle marketing and retention as the same thing, but actually they're not, right? I am a massive fan of lifecycle marketing and CRM marketing. I've spent many years in the discipline. I have a course, I teach it, I train teams on it, right? I think CRM marketing is a hugely valuable discipline and can make a big impact. And I've seen it multiple times drive 8-figure incremental revenue for multiple global brands, something like 9-figure incremental revenue. But messaging sits within the context of the retention system, right? Sits within the context of your product acquisition quality, how you manage the base. But managing the base is not just about offers and discounts and promos. It's about managing the relationship in key moments within the relationship. We're going to talk a little bit about onboarding, I think, today. That's a key stage, of course. And it sits within the context of product value realization. So if you default to messaging being your solution to retention, you're not actually tackling the fundamental underlying drivers of retention because it sits within the system. So you can have perfect CRM, but no amount of perfect CRM marketing, lifecycle marketing will fix a bad customer experience, bad customer product fit.
This is very well said. And before I forget, I would like you to mention your course.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've got a course. Yes, so it's a CRM marketing strategy course. If you want to learn like technical skills about deliverability and so on, don't do this course. This course is very much about customer strategy. It's about moments of truth. It's about design as well. So it's about email UX. Most people do not, and CRM marketing UX push and the app and so on. Most people really do. It's really important to be clear on. 85-86% of people don't read messages, they just scan, right? Some people, there's a very small proportion of people that will read every single word, right? But the vast majority of people just look at something, scan, oh, is this relevant for me? No, right? Or is this relevant for me? Yes, right? Or now I want to click the button, right? So all about kind of designing around kind of reverse pyramid. It's about how you handle moments of truth, how you measure properly. I talk about incrementality, how you use data and so on. Yeah, it's been pretty popular. I had about 1,500 people do the version 1 and 2, and yeah, number 2 is on my website. So yeah, if anyone's interested, they can jump on board.
Brilliant. I'm sure we will be linking that when we upload this video as well. So
Okay.
tell me, why do you think that trying to fix the entire customer experience usually fails? You know how you spoke about messaging and it's not going to fix your retention. So what do you think in the CX scenario?
CX, I mean, I've seen, and I'm sure you have as well, like so many teams over the years kind of formed, disbanded. And the reason for that is that they try to optimize, organizations try to optimize the entire customer experience. And as a result of that, you waste a lot of budget and political capital because when you try to optimize everything, you end up optimizing very little. And actually, what you need to do is to focus on those key moments in the relationship that make or break retention. And if you focus on those moments, like the first 90 days, or you understand the underlying core motivation behind why usage drops, and then you build services and product functions and messaging and customer experience initiatives within the service context around the underlying motivational drivers for usage drop, or you optimize those key service interactions. So sometimes many organizations have like a blanket approach just to service management. Every customer is treated the same. But if you identify moments that over time can either compound, multiple different moments can compound into a feeling of this brand is not for me, this brand doesn't appreciate me, this brand doesn't value me. If you identify those moments, whether it's in onboarding, whether it's in usage drop, whether it's in service, then your customer experience initiatives will be much more effective because you'll be focused on things that actually move the needle. And so I look, I'm a massive Right Cold and Winning on Purpose. I'm a massive advocate of that work. And you've seen my newsletter. I often quote Fred as well, right? And the T-Mobile case study is probably the best example of kind of customer love in practice. I absolutely love that work. But when you embark on a customer experience transformation like that, you need to have focus.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I have been following you for long enough to know a lot about your framework with 90 days, and I totally agree with you. I very often suggest to clients not to treat the database as a dump because not all customers are created equal. And it's important to start differentiating them very early on based on their behavior. And if nothing else, just focus on those 20% of customers that drive 80% of your revenue. And I just hope to God that you know who they are because it's
Yes.
not that difficult to identify them.
No, it's not. Absolutely right.
Speaking of simple terms, I do like simplifying things because there are so many acronyms floating around all the time. So where you most often, how do you actually think about the moments that matter in simple terms?
So in simple terms, you need to draw it back to kind of human behavioral drivers. So moments that matter are those moments in the relationship that make or break retention. So it can be the very first time you open an app in a subscription context, like after you've subscribed and you've got an app with that service, that is a make or break moment. If you don't know what to do in that moment, you can really quickly disengage. And this applies a lot to B2B SaaS. You see that very turn to the first moment you open Canva or any kind of subscription service as a small business owner or as a consumer. If you do not get a immediate fast results, then that can immediately cause you to disengage with the product or service. You don't want to spend time. You want to get your job done, right? As Clayton says, right? Get your job done quickly and effectively. So that would be a moment. But then other moments, like I've mentioned already, I think at a high level, is like service moments, like where maybe you've called or you're unhappy with something that's happened with a delivery or with a product experience. you want a refund, you passed around 5 departments, and eventually computer says no, and then you leave feeling dissatisfied, right? So that would be another moment of truth. So what I typically do with clients is draw it back to what are the fundamental human drivers of churn within your organization. And you can unpick this through research and through data, but typically across any subscription and recurring revenue business, there's kind of 4 drivers, and they show up in different ways and in different sectors. But I don't feel value fast enough, so that's very much related to onboarding and to that kind of Canva example I mentioned. I feel guilt because I'm not using this. So this is related to services where engagement directly correlates to attention. So things like streaming brands, for example. This is not exciting anymore. That can cross across multiple categories. So you sign up to a subscription box, and you're like super excited. You're going to have all these lovely, healthy meals every week, and you're into it for like, you have brilliant onboarding, you understand it, and then you're into it for like 8 weeks, and like, I'm a bit bored now. I just want to go to the restaurant. I'm just going to cook it myself from a cookbook, right? So people love excitement, but they habituate really, really quickly. And then the final one, and I've spoken about this a bit already, but kind of in the service context, is I don't feel valued. So like, if you had a bad experience, you can, and you're a tenured customer that's had a long-term relationship with the brands, maybe you're in the second contract in a telco, and you contact you contact them to renew your contract, and the offer they give you is worse than that which they're promoting to acquisition customers, then you can feel undervalued. But you also feel undervalued if you had a bad service experience. So those 4, and they show up, as I said, in different ways. And so the way I work with my clients around the kind of diagnostic is, okay, how do these different drivers show up? And you might use different language depending on the client, but how do these different drivers show up? And then how do they contribute to churn? What's the research telling us in terms of how they contribute to churn? And then what are the moments against those human drivers that are triggering churn or retention? So, for example, I don't feel valued. Again, I'll just go with that one because it's really simple. I don't feel valued. There's a service moment that's led to a feeling that you're not the brand for me, right, over time. So mapping those 4 behavior drivers to the moments allows brands to then prioritize the moments that matter, and then build experiences that truly shift the retention KPI.
Yes, I think you pinpoint all of them very well. And it's all around that human behavior categorically as well. Make it easy for me to understand and sign up and to get what it is that's on offer. Make it easy for me to redeem by making me feel that you appreciate my service and my brand probably aligns as well. And show up when it's actually important to me,
Exactly.
not when you think it's important to me. And I'll give you a brilliant example. I actually have 2. So there is a famous and the biggest bakery chain in here. I'm not going to name them, but anyone in Australia know exactly whom I'm talking about it. And they have an app. They have a big loyalty program, and I wanted to test it out as you do. And I walked into the shop, I downloaded the app, and it was the most convoluted experience I've ever come across. They literally made me jump through the hoops just to sign up to that app. And I just gave up, and I just could not revisit. And I know they're successful somehow. It's probably people who are super patient that can go through it, but I can't. It's just, for me, it's just make it quick for me, because if you make the onboarding process so difficult, what else are you making difficult for me? Why would I want to give you my business?
Exactly. I've got a similar example as well. There's a upmarket supermarket chain in the UK where they have a loyalty card, and I shop there sometimes. I said, "Oh, can I have a loyalty card when I was in the store?" "No, sorry, you have to apply online." And that's just too much friction, right? Just give me a card in the shop, put the bill, and then you can go and sign up later, right? And then you will, because you've already had the value, right? If I have to go and I've got kids, I've got a busy life, I don't want to go and, so you're absolutely right. Make that first onboarding moment so easy. Is
Yes.
really, really important. Right?
And I spoke with my. You go.
So I was going to say, just reminds me of something about the Best Buy when they launched guest checkout. So they were the first brand to launch guest checkout, right? And then that
Correct.
story.
Yes, I know the story. But we
and
can
through
you can mention the story to our audience as well if you
yeah.
like.
So the guest checkout is pretty common, but Best Buy were the pioneers of it. And what they found was that lots of people didn't want to create an account, so they allowed customers to check out as a guest. And then at the end of the process, 90% of people checked out, create an account anyway. And they saw $300 million uplift in the first year of launching it, which is why everybody does it now. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do have another example, but we'll skip through it. I have so many questions for you. I think it's going to be the longest session I've ever recorded. But because we normally go live with us, this is the first session ever that I'm actually recording. I hope everything will go right technology wise. Do you think, and this is very close to my heart, so I just wanted to get a validation from you. Do you think that high value, prioritizing high value customers, it's still quite uncomfortable for organizations? Do you A, feel that it's uncomfortable? And if yes, why do you think that is?
Oh, definitely. It's very uncomfortable. And there's a lot of things like this that in the retention space and to customer experience and loyalty that feel slightly counterintuitive to people when they look at it on the surface. I'll do a post today about churn rates actually, but yes, I do feel that it's slightly uncomfortable for organizations to prioritize high value customers because it feels anti-growth. People want to be like egalitarian. They want to be for everyone in their market, and therefore they want to be fair. And they think that being fair for everyone is the key to success, but it's often not. And I'm a massive fan of the work of Peter Fader, the guy, world leading thinker in customer lifetime value. And what I've seen, having applied his principles into organizations that I've worked with, is if you prioritize those highest value customers, typically, depending on the business, depending on the sector, Pareto's law applies, right? Generally, and Pareto's law is everywhere, but it can be sometimes 60 to 80% of revenue from 10 to 30% of customers, something in that kind of ballpark usually. And then if you prioritize those highest value customers and give them better experiences, so differentiated service, you overcome that behavioral driver that I mentioned before. I don't feel valued, right? Quite easily because the customer already has a good fit with you. They obviously clearly have a need for your product and service. And so if you treat them better than and invest more in service for those customers and give them perks and benefits that demonstrate that you value their customer and you recognize their tenure and recognize the strength of their relationship with you, they're more likely to be retained and they're more likely to stay with you. And if they're more likely to stay with you, you end up prioritizing and protecting that 60 to 80% of revenue that is, making driving a large part of the success of your business, right? But I just continually see, and I was on the Amazon AWS podcast last year, or year before last, and I was talking about this, and just so many leaders just feel just so uncomfortable about it, right? Like,
I watched that podcast, by the way.
oh, did you? Awesome, yeah, fantastic.
It was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's just it's very much to do with this problem that I mentioned before, in that CMOs and CCOs, they don't come from a retention background, and on the surface, it seems like the right thing to do for your reputation to treat everybody the same, but in reality, actually, it's not. And also, when you think about it in the other way as well, like if you think about like the low value customers. That contribute a small amount to profits and some revenues, and are actually often quite a large proportion of the base. That's always the case in any organization. Then those customers actually don't expect exceptional levels of service because they don't have a very tight relationship with you, right? So actually, you can optimize for cost against that cohort. The problem comes when you optimize for cost, particularly in a service context, across everybody, and then you upset the highest value. So there's quite a lot of complexity around this and trade-offs, but it does make people uncomfortable, I think.
I agree with you. And I think in this DNA, when people do expect personalization, playing it safe, it's not a thing.
It's not, absolutely not, right? I totally agree. People that, yeah, and I agree. Yeah.
We're on the same page,
Yes.
as always.
Yeah.
I would like to circle back to your consultancy work, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
because there are many fractional roles right now, we see fractional CMOs, we see consultants like you and I, and a lot of people have more flexibility and freedom to do this type of work. And it's not for everyone, by the way.
No.
I learned through my experience. I absolutely love it, but I also understand why people wouldn't like it because, and it is quite complex. So, my question to you: what starting your consultancy taught you about clarity and certainty?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I love doing this work is the fact that you can work with different clients in different contexts. You go deep on the strategic side, and then you can drive a real change and a real impact. And that's what I really love. On a personal side, it gives you a bit more control and freedom around your own time, right? I mean, you've got two small children, and like honestly, the way I work as well is quite intense. Like when I'm working on a client project, I work with one client at a time. I go very, very deep on that client, and um, sometimes I'll do like 14-hour days on a Sunday, for example, and I'll do that to get really deep into the flow. But you can't sustain that over like a year, for example. You just burn out, right? So it's just it fits my working style, but yeah, like certainty is not something that you get from this world, is it? Right? But then the
Absolutely.
other benefits are the kind of control of your own time, and also the fact that you spend time on those of doing, which is like solving these challenges rather than if you're on client side sitting in endless meetings that maybe they're not relevant for you, which I found a lot when I was client side.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I would argue that certainty doesn't exist when you have a job.
Exactly.
Like
It
you're
doesn't.
not
It's different kind of certainty, isn't it? That's right. Yeah, you're
you're not
right.
protected from anything.
No,
Anything can
that's
happen. It could be a spreadsheet exercise and you can be made redundant and changes happen all the time. So the certainty is your personal brand and
exactly. I
the
think
way you build it.
that's absolutely right. Yeah, if you build your own personal brand, you have authority in your space, and you're seen as somebody who's knowledgeable. That's what gives you certainty, not a monthly paycheck. You're absolutely right.
To finish our very interesting conversation, I would like you to summarize for us, in your opinion, what do you think one thing leaders should stop doing and one thing they should start doing when it comes to retention?
So I think stop knee-jerk reactions to retention spikes and go back to fundamentals, right? So the stop is the knee-jerk reactions, and the start is go back to fundamentals. Understand the human behavioral drivers. Identify across the retention hierarchy of needs where you have different cohorts that have different product customer fit within your audience. So that's the foundation. So usually your highest value customers have the highest fit. Secondly, look at the middle element of that hierarchy, which is your acquisition strategies. Are you acquiring to minimize CAC? If you're acquiring to minimize customer acquisition cost without a CLV lens, then you inevitably acquire more customers that are of low value because they, in any market, in any industry, there's always more low value customers than there are high value customers. And if you apply a CLV lens, then you'll be able to potentially outspend your competitors because you can acquire higher value customers at higher CAC because they have a higher LTV. Then it's also be more sticky. And then at the top, look at what are those moments of truth and map back to the behavioral drivers and identify how you can maintain, drive early value realization, maintain product freshness so that novelty doesn't fade, and ensure that those most valuable customers feel valued and feel appreciated, whether that's by the way in which you treat them from a service perspective, even very, very simple things like in your communication, recognizing, and airlines do this quite well, like recognizing the status of the flyer, right? Just those little things they think can be quite often underplayed, but they mean a lot to customers.
I found this exactly the same. They don't actually want a discount, but they want that acknowledgement and appreciation for acknowledging them being the customer to begin with.
Exactly right, 100%.
It's such a great example. I think we live in the parallel universe. Well, we are. But Tom,
Absolutely.
it's been
Yeah.
such a pleasure. I'm a big fan, as you know. I've been following you for quite some time. I love your work. I love reading your newsletters, and I hope that people who will come across this recording will sign up because they're going to learn an enormous amount from you. And I actually also love how you articulate it as well, because many people can understand what the issues and the problems are, but not many can articulate it in the way you do. And it's quite succinctly, but at the same time, it goes quite deep as well and across so many touch points. So it's been tremendous. I always learn a lot from you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you for making the time because we do have a significant time difference. And
Oh, no,
you're ready for your second cup of coffee.
yeah, it's ready for my second. Look, thank you, Anna. It's been an absolute privilege. I really appreciate, value your contribution as well. I've been following you as well for a while as well. So thank you for all your kind words, and thank you as well so much for the opportunity to be on the Spotlight Friday.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see each other and we'll hear from each other very soon. Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely. See you soon. Take care.